The distinction between nations is the value of leadership. Ghana is an example of a nation that has experienced economic, social, and political transformation. This has been instrumental through the leadership of Mr. John Agyekum Kufuor, who served as president for 8 years. In this interview with Mr. Jose Maria Figuerez, former president of Costa Rica, Mr. Kufuor sheds more light on strategic leadership.
As a matter of fact, you were the chair of the Kumasi Asante Kotoko football team that was 4 times Africa's national champion. Last but not least, proud father of 5.
Wow.
So, Mr. President, more recently you have been distinguished, of course, with numerous international distinctions. The one that I would like to recognize you for here today is in 2011 when you received the World Food Prize together with President Lula of Brazil for your fight and your perseverance against poverty, hunger, and fighting for better conditions of development. Thank you, sir, for being here with us this morning.
Thank you.
Mr. President, we started this morning by honoring President Mandela. You met him several times. What would you say was the most distinguishing characteristic of his leadership style that you recall?
When you had the opportunity, like I had, to meet him, I'm sure you really agree, that was a very engaging human being. He didn't carry his great achievement and position in life with him. At once, he relaxed with a smile and talking down to earth about things like family, your country, and then mission, why we were going to see him. I thought that was something. Very humble, down-to-earth human being. The few times I was privileged to meet him, he didn't raise anything that was reminiscent of the suffering he went through. And I concluded after a few meetings that he was a man of destiny. He'd been shaped by destiny. He started life, if you really get to read about him, in ways that didn't promise that he would end the way he ended. From a village, yes, a prince, but of a village. Then ran away from the village into Johannesburg to work in a mine where he was sacked. But then, because of that character that you can't easily define, he made himself, studied, eventually becoming a lawyer, and then leading his people in the struggle against the vicious apartheid system.
Sir, in your first government, you had 5 areas of concentration, and one of them was governance. In your second government, you had 3 areas of priority, and again, one of them was governance. What did you achieve during those 8 years to improve governance in your country?
Well, I took office in 2001 when the economy of Ghana was in a very parlous state. Ghana was not creditworthy. Our currency was in a downfall, steep downfall, where for $1 American dollar, United States dollar, you needed 10,000 Ghana cedis. And this was not stable. Every week, the exchange dropped against Ghana, And if you wanted to buy a loaf of bread, say if you bought it this week for the equivalent of $1 US, next week you may need $1.20. This was the state. For instance, we owed Nigeria for supplies of crude oil, which we couldn't pay. So Nigeria had blacklisted Ghana when I assumed office. And within the first 2-3 weeks, I had to dash here to Abuja to plead with President Obasanjo to allow more credit for Ghana.
What did he say?
He assembled a team of ministers in his office, and then I sat there like a student.
You felt back at
Yes.
Oxford?
The president, I remember vividly, stated that it was against their policy to continue supplying people who couldn't pay for the supplies. So I had come, and so how would I settle the debt before we could talk? I said, if I could settle the debt, I wouldn't come.
I would have avoided this classroom.
Yeah, but we needed the oil. So he said, I'm sure after consulting with his team, came back telling me, well, look, we need an undertaking from you. And I said, what's the undertaking? He said, if you'd write that as and when you can pay, you will pay. And you sign this for us, then we will resume supplying you. I said, if that's all you want, give me pen and paper and I'll write one. And even before I could deliver such a note, he announced that they would resume supplying Ghana on 30,000 barrels a day with 90-day supplies credit. And truly, he kept his word. And we worked on this basis for the entire 8 years that I was in power in Ghana.
Extraordinary.
But I started with a program. Because the economy was in shambles, I knew that we needed to restore the macroeconomy. That's the public policy and management of the economy and the finance sector, the monetary system, was to be put firmly on the ground with the strictest discipline, and to convince the international cooperators, my government decided to take the highly indebted poor countries initiative, HIPIN,
Yes.
to announce to the world that Ghana was in crisis, but Ghana was determined to restore itself by submitting to the disciplines of HIPIN. And on the basis of that, the creditors allowed a space by suspending demands for repayment of capital and interest. And in fact, within 2 years, we had managed the macroeconomy with such discipline, which was obvious, that the creditors started writing off or forgiving us the capital and interest that we owed. Within the 2 years, we were forgiven about $4 billion of debt that we should have found. And that gave us the space, and with that, we then said the government should pursue vigorous infrastructure development to do the roads, energy systems, communications or telecommunication systems, so as to open the way for the economy to move. Incidentally, we had come to power on the manifesto that we were going to usher in the golden age of business. We knew that without the restoration of infrastructure, private sector, of course, wouldn't come. So that's really, we made that number one. And then number two, we talked of modernizing and commercializing agriculture. Most of our population lived on the land, over 60%. but they were using subsistence methods, which didn't help. So we needed to restore agriculture. And then thirdly, we talked of the social services of education and health care, yes, to alleviate hardships of the people generally. And fourthly, governance. You know what governance entails. Government itself showing discipline, living within the budget, and cutting back on indiscriminate borrowing, especially in the domestic front. Yes. Using money so raised, not for returns, but for consumption. Last but not least, to empower the private sector, because we knew that from the times of independence of Ghana and under unexamined ideological pretensions, the private sector had been destroyed. There was no private sector. And we knew the government or public sector alone could not do it. So we put it in our priorities to restore the private sector and empower it.